Hey guys, thank you so very much for tuning in to yet another installment of 2016 Taking Back Your Life series, where we talk about out of the box thinking, practical ideologies, and things to get really you, or as I like to say, the best version of you out and about. Many of you have already broken your New Year's resolution. Shame on you, but it happens, right? So, what I've decided to do is interview several people over the next couple of months. We started in March. Obviously, we're midway through. We've got some phenomenal people lined up, including our guest today, but we will be continuing on into April. Um, Before I talk about our guest today, let me just give some, I guess, some PSAs on what you're going to be doing today. So I've got the question and answer section loaded up. And all you got to do if you're watching this on our Google Plus page is you can do two things. You can just click on the actual question and answer button, and it will come to me, and I will ask our guests or talk about the commentary that you have. Or you can just type right in on the event page, and that too will show up, and I'll be able to talk about it. So if you're out there, go ahead and tweet and text and share this link so people can get in and get on this information. So we're going to focus on all aspects of your life, spiritual, physical, and best of all, my favorite, metaphysical, through this entire series. So let me introduce my guest today. My guest today I've known for quite a while. She's actually one of the founding hosts of my network, Survival Radio Network. She's also an American board certified family physician, medical acupuncturist, life balance coach, and certified NLP, hypnotherapy, and timeline therapy practitioner, just to name a few. Please welcome the founder of Mind, Body, and Soul Wellness, Inc., Dr. Maiysha Clairborne. Doc, welcome to the great.
Hi, hi. How are you?
Fantastic. You know, I love speaking with you, and we could talk for years, but I've only
Absolutely.
got you for another 45 minutes. So I'm going to dive right in because I got so much I want to ask. And some of these questions have come from guests who've watched the series. And when I put out the information that you were going to be on, they start sending me questions. Hey, ask her this, talk about this. So
Yeah.
I'm going to try my best to follow that blueprint. So, first thing is first, when did you decide that you wanted to practice medicine?
Well, I actually decided to practice, or I chose medicine as a profession when I was in the eighth grade.
Wow.
Um, yes, yes. It was actually pretty random. We had a writing assignment in the eighth grade to write a college, and we were practicing letter writing basically. And I looked at Atlanta, and I looked at, oh, here's Emory, here's Spelman, here's Morehouse. Oh, Emory sounds good. They have a school of medicine. So I wrote them. At that time, I just was doing a writing assignment. And then they wrote me back. And I was like, Emory School of Medicine wrote me back. And at that point, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be a doctor. Isn't that kind of random? Now, not to mention that my father is an obstetric gynecologist and my mom is a dentist. So it's kind of in my blood. I
That
should give
helped.
credit towards that. That definitely helped. But yeah, just like having decided and having to be put on that path, it was really out of that writing assignment.
So, as I talked about or mentioned in your intro, you do several things within the medical field.
Hmm.
Some of it, obviously, from the Western Hemisphere, but a lot of it from the Eastern kind of ancient ideology. So, what for you led you into alternative medical practices?
Well, so when I was in college, I went to Emory undergraduate school. And when I was getting ready to graduate from college, someone gave me a book called Between Heaven and Earth. Excuse me. And it was all about traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. It was just my first introduction to anything non traditional. And I read it, and it made so much sense to me. It just, like the way that the traditional Chinese medicine doctors evaluated the elements of the earth and how they impact our lives just and how they impact our emotions, the astrology piece of it. It all made so much sense. So at that point, I decided I wanted further education, and it was right at the point where I was getting ready to go to medical school. So for me, I just decided, I think this is probably going to be beneficial for me to have this tool in addition to the medical aspect. And there was a doctor who's still practicing in Atlanta, Dr. William Richardson, who I looked up, and so I looked up, well, who else is doing this combination of medicine and like of traditional medicine with non-traditional therapies? And he was the one that popped up so many years ago. And so I went to visit his clinic, and that was it. It was it. I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. So I went ahead and went to medical school with the background intention of furthering my education in more non-traditional therapies and practices.
You know what? I never knew that part of the story.
Yeah, I know. I've told that story many times.
But I never knew the fact that it was kind of preordained. You knew most people don't, the back end, and when they go to medical school, they just know I want to go to medical school. And then when they're in the midst, they kind of decide, well, okay, I want to kind of isolate here, or maybe I want to do this. And you already knew coming in, which is a great plan, where you wanted to end up.
Yeah, in fact, I actually trained in Reiki, which is a type of energy medicine, before I went to medical school. So I often joke that I was a healer before I was a doctor. So
wow.
This is where I was going. It was calling. It was a purpose for me.
Look at you, Doc. You were a shaman before you were a doctor. How about that?
Exactly.
So I always like to set at this point some ground footage here, and before we press on, because we're going to dive head in into some language. So for our listeners out there, how would you define holistic practice and or naturopathic medicine?
Well, so I want to distinguish something. So what I practice would be considered integrative medicine. That is, I integrate my traditional MD, my Western MD degree, into the more holistic or natural or complementary and alternative practices. So that's what I would be called as an integrative medicine physician. Now. Okay. Holistic is distinct from integrative, because you can actually be a Western doctor and practice holistically. Holistic just means that you look at the whole person. You look beyond just the physical into the emotional, into the to the mental, to the spiritual aspects of well-being, to the social. There are just so many different aspects of well-being. So if you're looking at all of those aspects, then you're practicing more holistically, as opposed to just practicing, like very directed medicine. So sure. What I do is I do both. I practice integratively and I practice holistically. A lot of times people automatically think that holistic doctor is a natural doctor, and that's not always the case. Some integrative medicine doctors are not very holistic. I know a few, who practice integrative or what we call functional medicine, but they do not really look at the patient as holistically as they could. So that's the big difference. You also asked about naturopathic medicine, which that's a discipline in itself. The integrative aspect of medicine includes naturopathic medicine, homeopathic medicine, includes mind-body technique, includes many different aspects of medicine that would not be considered the traditional or the Western route. So naturopathic medicine is one of those disciplines that includes herbal medicine and homeopathic medicine, and includes other like natural practices, like they might use oils. They have a vast knowledge, but a naturopathic physician has a different education from a medical physician.
Excellent. I needed that background, so we've had some clarity here. You wrote a book, and a wonderful book, Eat Your Disease Away.
Hmm.
where you talk about disease-fighting foods. And I wonder if you could take a moment and just let's talk about a few of those foods and what type of prevention do they cause?
Okay, okay, great. So I want to give some background context, right?
Sure.
When we talk about food, like really, we talk about using food as medicine, and this is the context in which we're speaking. Now, this is, not necessarily to replace medicine all the time, although sometimes it actually can. Uh, but what I want to share about that is that there's inflammatory foods and then there's non-inflammatory foods. And I cover this in my book. Some of the foods that are more inflammatory tend to be things like sugar, like the fried foods, the unhealthy fatty foods, processed foods. Those tend to be more of the inflammatory type foods. But when you're getting into non-inflammatory foods, you're getting into more of your green foods, your spinach, your kales, your tomatoes, your like all of the berries, all the berries, the blue, the black, the red, the strawberries. So these are more non-inflammatory foods. Well, there are definitely specific foods that fight specific things. For example, broccoli has a particular substance in it that is cancer fighting. And in addition, so broccoli has another substance that some people might recognize, DIM, that when extracted, it actually can help to balance the estrogen level in women and men actually, but we use it more so in women, so it gets rid of excess estrogen. Tomatoes are really good for the prevention of prostate cancer. So it's the lycopene. Lycopene is a particular substance in tomatoes that has been shown in studies to fight off or to prevent prostate cancer. And then you have like all of your dark berries, and your dark berries tend to be really great antioxidants. So anytime that you're stressed out or you have a process in the body that's going to produce what we call free radicals, and what free radicals are is they're these things in the body that damage cells. They cause cell damage. And what that means is it can cause the dysfunction of organs. It can cause you to age faster. And when we are having a high antioxidant diet, then in fact, we can keep our youth longer and the cells in our body function a little bit better over a long period of time. So those are just a few of the foods that have very specific, like healing function. Of course, like your kale and your green foods, like your spinach and chard and bok choy, those are like the dark leafy greens, and they're really great for liver detoxification as well.
Hey, Doc, what do you think here in 2016 when we're supposed to be smarter? I believe, if I remember correctly, we do live longer. I'm not. I'm pretty sure it's not because of what we eat, but but
medical technology.
right. Why is it that when you think about healing, and when I say you, I mean the culture, using it in that mindset, especially here in the United States. When you think of healing, when you think of anything about, when you talked about what foods will have you feel better or look better, we think of medicine first, and then very rarely do we think about food as being a healer. And I wonder where you think we got that from. Where did that evolution start in our psyche?
Well, I think what happens is that, as medical advances occur, we get, I hate to use the word brainwash, but in a sense, we do. We get a little brainwashed to that medicine is the answer. Like the technological or the technological advances in medicine are just phenomenal. Like I can't completely knock it. I wouldn't have gone to medical school if I was completely against medicine. But when we, as a crutch, physicians who train these, well, today and in the before were trained in using pharmacology and not necessarily trained in using nutrition. So whereas in, say, India or in like China, or like where they're practicing more of these how do you call it? They're practicing traditional Chinese medicine. They, even in Africa, where there are a lot more, like there's the shamans and there's the healers that use the roots and berries and things like that. That's traditional medicine. That's what has worked for thousands and thousands of years. And then when we have our technological advances, that stuff, whatever that stuff is, it gets left behind. It gets the way from that. Even in the U.S., they have their healing. So I just think it has to do with, as the technology advances, as there's research, more dogma, there's more brainwashing, if you will, there's more media hype around all of these new things, these new medicines that can help those things in life.
Well, and at the same time, it does seem like there has been in recent years an awakening to practices like yourself that deal with the mind, body, and soul when thinking about even simple things from migraines, which we'll talk about in a minute, to more serious things like cancer. I see a consciousness in the United States that's saying, hey, something's not right here. The more traditional methods aren't working as well as they should, and people are starting to do the things you're talking about by understanding how food affects them, understanding that there's you can cure the body, but if the mind is stressed, then you still have this destructive nature. Do you see in your practice that more people are becoming open to it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, people come to me exactly for that reason, that they have been to multiple practitioners and haven't had results, or they actually may have been seeing a naturopath or a health coach or a chiropractor, and they want someone who's more integrative in nature. So they specifically come to me ready for that type of medicine. I think that what's opening up the eyes of patients today is that medicine is, like traditional medicine is hitting or Western medicine is hitting a wall, and doesn't work. The system is like breaking down, not functioning the way it should. And it's not just from a medical or a technological standpoint, it's also from a patient doctor relationship standpoint as well. Patients are feeling less listened to and feeling like they're just being run through the mill, like as a number. So it also has to do, we talk about the spirit, we talk about the mind, the body, and the spirit. It has to do with the relationship doctor and the patient that has patients or cynical of traditional.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, cynical is certainly the operative word there. And I want to do a kind of, we'll call it a game, where I want to, if you would play with me, name some common ailments. And you talk about certain foods that not necessarily cure, but certainly aid in the recovery or aid in the lessening of them. Could we play that a little bit?
You can play.
Okay, and we're losing sound just a little bit. It's coming in and out. Totally gone.
Oh boy, hold on.
Okay, just came back, but now gone again. Okay, let's do this. Let's try it where we had it originally, without the headset or Bluetooth.
I hear me right.
In and out, and it was going in and out before, but now it's doing it a lot. Yes, I can't hear you at all right now. I'm just reading your lips.
Hold on.
Okay, that's good.
So you can
Well, what it's doing is it's like every other word is going in and out. So let's see if we can go back to just the your pad. Say something now, Doc.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you. All right, perfect.
Okay, good.
So we're going to play a game, and I think you said yes, we could do it.
I did.
Okay. I have to get your permission because that's how you have to ask doctors. I just like saying doc. I don't know. I'm silly. All right. So first one I want to address, and you can answer it in any way, shape, or form when we talk to eating habits, is migraines.
Migraines. Okay. So with migraines, it's not necessarily about foods, it's about triggers. And you want to, number one, know what your triggers are. And typically they tend to be stress, lack of sleep, dehydration, and sometimes there are specific foods that can trigger them. The food is actually dependent on the person. With migraines, it could be that you're allergic to particular foods. So you might eliminate gluten or eliminate nuts or eliminate dairy. Those are like the top three that people tend to be most allergic to. But after that, you would want to get tested. The other thing about migraines is that you want to look at, whether you have pain and whether that could be the source. So with migraines, it's more about what's the source of the migraine, what's the trigger, and then you avoid, get rid of the trigger or manage the trigger in terms of stress, and that will help. Sometimes it's also hormones, so you may actually get your hormones checked as well.
Next, menopause.
Oh, menopause is, yeah. So menopause is all about the deficiency of hormones. They're all there are foods to naturally boost estrogen. There are foods um, that are rich in soy. You have to be careful about those foods though, because a lot of them are genetically modified. But like edamame, which is the soybean, is good. I usually recommend against purchasing soy milk in the store, but if you can always make your own soy milk. You can buy the soybean, and there's lots of recipes of making your own homemade soy milk if you want to do that. But again, you need to be mindful of taking in too much soy because it also can affect adversely the thyroid. What else in terms of foods? In terms of menopause. So there are two hormones that are affected in menopause, and that are estradiol or estrogen and progesterone. And those are two complementary hormones. With progesterone, wild yam is also known to boost progesterone as well. And so, you think about things like, and then you've heard of supplements like black cohosh and there's one other that I'm thinking of, red clover, but there's one other I'm thinking of right now, chasteberry, that can help to manage the estrogen. And of course, I always recommend if that doesn't help, then to be seen by a physician or like someone who practices integratively, a naturopathic doctor, or someone like myself, an integrative medicine, functional medicine doctor.
And before I go in further, I want to remind our listeners that we do have a question and answer button. If you click on that, if you have a question for Dr. Maiysha Clairborne, all you have to do is type in that and I will see it and I'll read it on air live. And I think let's address, if we would, fibromyalgia.
Fibromyalgia is an inflammatory condition. This is when the body is like overly sensitive to inflammation in general. I would say it's very close to like what an autoimmune disorder would be like. It's the body's overreactivity to inflammation. So with fibromyalgia, there's nothing super specific in terms of food except eliminating inflammatory foods, eliminating gluten, eliminating dairy, eliminating any foods that you actually might be sensitive or allergic to. So it might be worth getting tested. With fibromyalgia too, I also tend to test for other things that mimic it. So sometimes people are diagnosed. Fibromyalgia is one of those things that doctors will diagnose when they don't know what else to say that it is. And a lot of times there are some other underlying conditions that may have been missed, like Lyme disease, or hormone imbalance can cause a similar thing as well. So you want to look at, or certain viruses can cause these things. So you want to like kind of look at, is it really you want to make sure it's fibromyalgia, but the mainstay is to eliminate inflammatory foods and start to incorporate um, more green, like the dark leafy greens, the antioxidants I talked about, like the berries and the green, the chard, bok choy, spinach, kale. You can do those in smoothies, or you can cook them. There are like a ton of recipes out there for those things. Mm-hmm.
And the last one I'll throw out there is stress, the big S word.
Oh, yeah, stress is just food and stress. I would say that's less about food and more about structure. So, stress is a part of life. You want some stress, but you want some good stress because it motivates you to take action. But when you're constantly stressed, then it can impact all areas of life. It can impact not only your social, your relationships, your body. Um, actually, stress is a cause of inflammation. So you want to look at what it is that's stressing you out, and then you also want to look at, can that stressor be completely removed? A lot of times it can't. So then it's all about creating the structure and the action plan to help you to manage that stress in such a way that it gives you some relief. And so that's basically what I have to say about that. It's
Okay.
it's all about structure and plan of action, and actually aligning your priorities with your values. If your priorities and your values are out of alignment, then you suffer. That's usually where stress happens.
Staying kind of in the theme of nutrition and eating, can you touch a bit on the power of detoxing?
Oh yeah. so so here's what's interesting is I'm on day 6 of a green smoothie detox. So that's
Awesome.
fitting. Well, so the main thing is this, when we eat the way we eat, unless you're just always eating super clean, there are going to be toxins that build up. I mean, we're exposed to things every day. We walk out and there's crap in the air. If you're using products from Walgreens, CVS, Target, then there's crap in the lotion and in the soaps, and then there's just like all kinds of toxins that you're exposed to. Not to mention if you ever go out to eat, which I hope you do. I mean, like food is meant to be enjoyed. You're gonna get toxins from however they prepare their food. So that you're constantly having the buildup of toxins. And to have a regular detox program, I would say no more than quarterly, but about twice a year is about a good average time. I tend to like the spring and the fall, the equinoxes. And they don't need to be like forever. They can be I'm doing a 10-day smoothie detox. The longest I'll do with my patients is a 21-day, and it's
Ooh.
usually um, it's usually for patients who have never done a detox before. They eat like crap and they need a jump start to some other kind of way of eating. But generally, something like a 7 to 10 day detox is sufficient. And there are many, many types of detoxes out there. I want to distinguish between the colon cleanse and a detox.
Mm.
Although colon cleansing is a part of a detox, it is not the whole detox. So um, I want to like discourage people away from using um, laxatives and overdoing colon cleansing, because you can actually cripple your intestines when you do that. You want to like that's just a warning shot. And I cover detoxing a lot in my book as well, but it just basically it helps your body to draw the toxins from the tissues and you to eliminate them through through the various ways. Eliminate from the gut, urine, sweat, whatever. Because the skin is the largest organ in the body, so like doing infrared sauna is a way to detox. Um, Again, in terms of like the method, there's what I'm doing, which is green smoothie, which is where There are several recipes that I have, and I do green smoothie in the morning, green smoothie in the for lunch, and then I eat dinner, but I eat veggies only. I don't eat, and so I've eliminated dairy, and I've eliminated processed everything. I don't really eat much processed anyway, but processed everything, including sugar, which is a big one for me. Sugar and cheese. It's just I just love sugar and cheese.
Mine too. Those are my Achilles heels.
Yes, yes, yes. So I have this, cheese in my, and I look at it every day like, oh God, just 4 more days.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
We're working our way kind of through the system, albeit fast, because we don't have that kind of time to go through everything. But let's talk about something that you are very much a practitioner in, which is acupuncture. And I've never had the pleasure of doing it, but I do understand it's ancient art of power of healing. So
Mhm.
first, can you talk a little bit about what it is? Because I think people, the only thing they know is it's needles involved. And then what exactly are the benefits from it?
So first of all, I can't believe you've never had acupuncture, and I live right here in Atlanta.
I know. You know what? Again, I did not know you were a practitioner
What
of
is up with that?
acupuncture. So, and I've known you forever. So now I know. So it's on my bucket list before I get,
Yeah.
which is
We
in
cannot
6 months.
we cannot have another interview without you having had acupuncture. Put my
Done.
foot down.
Consider it done.
I'm by the office. So, so acupuncture is a system of healing that is derived originally from the Chinese, in China, from the Chinese, and but to note, there are several styles now of acupuncture. So there's Chinese acupuncture, there's Japanese acupuncture, there's Korean acupuncture, there's even French have their style of acupuncture. So it's all, there are different systems that they implement. Like the Korean use the hand and the scalp, and Japanese use different kind of needles. But what acupuncture is a system of healing that uses meridians in the body and points on the body that send back a feedback system to the brain and the body to produce whatever um, neurotransmitters or hormones or substances that'll help the body to heal itself. So some of the things that acupuncture is good for, just starting from external to internal, is muscle strains, muscle spasms. So neck, back, shoulders, ankles, knees, arthritis, tendonitis. So some of the more superficial things acupuncture is great for. Things like balancing hormones and fertility in women. It definitely is great for women, fibroids and endometriosis and chronic cystitis, which is inflammation of the bladder. Women who have had it will know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's also great for um, just like relaxation, anxiety, insomnia. I have one patient who comes in on every 3 weeks, like clockwork, especially when she's really stressed out. She's going through a very stressful situation. And so, she comes in and it helps to calm her, it helps to regulate her sleep. So these are just a few of the things that it's really good for.
So when you were saying that, I'm trying to get a visual, not only for myself but for the listeners. How long typically does a session last?
Hmm.
And are you? I understand it affects different things, and you have to kind of figure out why they're coming in for that
Hmm.
particular practice. But
Yeah.
are you doing it in a particular part of the body, or is it all over, or how does that work?
So there are over 700 points on the body from the head to the toe. And in any given time, we could use any of those points. Primarily, it depends on your style of acupuncture as to what you tend to use most. In my practice, I tend to use the legs and the arms, and legs, foot, hand, arms the most. There are points along the midline of the belly that I will do sometimes in women, and there are some points on the back that I will do sometimes. For things like back pain, hip pain, neck pain, of course, I'm going to do these points more on the back and the neck. And for points that are more for internal healing, I tend to use the arms and legs and hands and feet. But again, this is there, for the specific condition, there are points and point prescriptions that actually help to modulate the system and have the system heal itself. A typical acupuncture session generally lasts about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the person. And a lot of times, people come in, I evaluate them just like I would normally evaluate a person. And then I ask them some very specific questions that help me to know what is the imbalance that I'd be looking at and treating. And then I, from there, pick out a particular point prescription, and then we go to work. Once they are on the table with the needles, they get to relax. So I usually will turn on some nice music, relaxation music, and leave the room and let them relax for a good 30 minutes to
Oh, wow.
45 minutes. And a lot of people fall asleep on the table. And of course, the age-old question, is acupuncture painful? No, it is not painful.
That is so amazing that, it's like we're brought up, well, we get needles when we're babies on up. And
Right.
so we have this negative image of them that, hey, so it's hard to like, you pull out these 700 needles and you're like, oh, okay, this isn't going to hurt at all.
and on average, people will have anywhere from 10 to 15 needles in them. That's it. 10 to 15 needles, because whatever we're treating on both sides. So whatever point I do on one side, I always do on the other. So yeah, it's really, there's 700 and something points, but we're not
Right,
like
right,
Hellraiser Pinhead happening.
right,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
It's not,
Well, that's
everybody
what I'm
gets that
thinking, right?
visual, right? Everybody gets that visual, but it's not that many And the other thing is that the needles are so tiny. They're like really, really, really tiny, and they're mostly really short as well. The needle doesn't actually go deep into the point. The needle only goes probably um, a millimeter, if that, like a millimeter, depending on like the point. If it's more like the hip or thigh area, it may go you know uh, 2 millimeters, but really it's like 1 to 3 millimeters
Wow.
that goes into the skin. So very, very superficial, but that's the system of healing.
Wrapping it up, but I got to ask you, you touched on this before. What do you mean when one says, in this case, neurolinguistic programming?
That's a great question. Everybody always asks that question. So neurolinguistic programming is it's a discipline, and I would say it's similar to hypnosis in the way that it deals with uh, commands in the mind, but it's a system of shifting context in the brain, reorganizing, retraining the brain in such a way that barriers are removed for action, limiting thoughts are disappeared, old habits can be removed, and even you can really train the brain to heal itself, or the brain to heal the body rather.
Wow.
So it's a very powerful, powerful tool. It's used a lot in weight loss. It's used in smoking cessation. I use it a lot with my coaching and my mind body coaching. So when I have a patient that comes in, particularly that we're implementing some kind of therapy, but they're in this sort of negative mind space of I can't, then we look at, well, what is the source of that conversation? And we go to work on that using the neurolinguistic programming. And if you break it down, neuro is the brain, linguistic is language, and programming is what that is. It's like, so it's a reprogramming of the brain and action through language.
Wow. I I could talk to you forever, but alas.
Alas.
So, Doc, before we get out of here, let everybody know if you've got some seminars, workshop, retreats coming up, or anything like that. And more important, for those who are in the Metro Atlanta area who happen to be viewing this, where they can reach out to you for more information, for consultation, or to, decide that they want you to be their practitioner.
Well, thank you, Clark. I don't have any current events coming up, and the way that you can keep up with that, because I will be starting to plan retreats in the next couple of months. The way you can keep up with that is by going on to our Facebook page. I have the radio show every Friday, which is the Wellness Blueprint Radio, 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you go to Facebook and you put in Wellness Blueprint Radio, you'll find our group. And that's where we post all of the updates for our events and for our shows. Now, if you want to connect in and get free recipes and articles on health and healing on a weekly basis, you can go to www.create-your-blueprint.com. That's create-your-blueprint.com. And finally, if you want to be seen in my practice, Mind, Body, Spirit Wellness Center, then you can go to our website, which is www.mbswellness.org. That's M as in Mary, B as in boy, S as in Sam, wellness.org. And you can inquire through our web form, or you can just give us a call at the office as well.
Once again, Dr. Maiysha Clairborne, thank you so very much. Hey,
Thank
guys.
you for having me.
Oh, always a pleasure. And for anybody who wants to review this again, or if you want to catch any of our Taking Back Your Life's 2016 series interview sessions, just go to my website at www.clarkgarrison.com, and that's KLARQUE, Garrison with a G.com. It's spelled right there. See it? Just go there and you'll be able to see all of the people we've had. You'll see the playback links, and we have some really cool edited versions that you can also view on my YouTube page. So just go to youtube.com and put in my name, Clark Garrison, and you'll be on our YouTube page to see the entire series. Next guest will be coming up. It's going to be on March 16th. The time is, let me verify that because I'm not 100% sure, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our guest is going to be the wonderful Maya White, who's going to be talking about the power of astrology. It's going to be a fun afternoon. I absolutely love astrology. I've gotten into it over the last 10 years, and I found it to be a great aid to some other practices that I've learned over that time. So thanks, guys, for hanging out with us. Be sure to tell someone else about our series. Again, we'll be going on with this until May of this year. I'm sorry, April will be the last month, and we're going to have some fun. Thanks. See you next time.
Thanks.
And